Hey, Robbie, guess what time it is?
What time is it?
It's giveaway time.
Giveaway time?
That's right. You heard me. Giveaway time.
What are we giving out?
Oh, I'll get into it. Don't you worry. As a way of both interacting with our listeners and also to help out with reviews for the show, we are doing a giveaway. So we will be doing a giveaway of an original copy of the Art of Steven Universe art book, as well as a set of Gravity Falls paper crafts. It's pretty dope, and you know all they have to do to get it?
What do they have to do, Tracy?
All you have to do is that if you listen to the show, please leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, anywhere you get your podcasts. Please send it to us via Twitter or on Instagram, and make sure to tag us. This will end the week of July 8th. Please send them to us by the week of July 8th. If you want to get these, we will DM you. And yeah, I think it's pretty cool because it's the original printing of the Steven Universe art book. So it's got like some of the stuff that they cut out after the fact. So if that appeals to you, this is our way of reaching out to you guys and just saying like, hey, we really appreciate it and we'd like to give back to you. So if you are interested, please enter. Make sure that you have your entry in by the week of July 8th because that is when we will be announcing our winner. Yep. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you enjoy this episode. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Hello, welcome to episode 82 of the Not Joanna Eggs podcast. This week, Tracy and I review the 2014 movie The Book of Life, directed by Jorge Gutierrez. This episode was recommended by Daniel Martinez at Electric Maestro 5 on Twitter. If you enjoy this episode, please remember to leave us a review on whatever sort of podcatcher app that you use. And if you would like, you can check out our show website on notjoannaeggs.tumblr.com. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy!
So this review in particular was actually a request from someone on Twitter, which was super cool. So we're going to give him a shout out really quick. This is from Daniel Martinez, handle at Electric Maestro 5. So thank you so much. We saw it gave us a huge list of stuff, and we actually did have quite a few of these that we had already checked out.
Yeah, Interestingly, I think we've done about half of them.
Yeah, no, I was a little surprised. I was like, damn, I wish we could put them all back up on the other channel, but that audio quality is going to be so shitty relative to when it came out to now that I would just be like, I don't know if we could remaster those to the point that they'd be easier to listen to. Like the first 3 episodes we just kind of have to admit are kind of crappy. Like every podcast, just don't listen to your first episode again. So
I mean, hey, The Last Unicorn still holds up on a level of comedy, if not audio quality.
It's true, but the first episode that we did for this show was Song of the Sea, and we kept getting interrupted by Robbie's cat. So because she would not stay out of the room. So
she really likes Tracy.
And I really like her, mostly because she yells at me whenever I come into the house, which has not happened yet because luckily Robbie will be back for summer break this time, which is awesome because the past couple of years has not been the case. So, but yeah, that's definitely something to look forward to. So let's get into the plot for this, if you would be so kind, Robbie.
Sure. So the very brief plot of this is that it is a framed narrative. The larger frame surrounding the actual story is a woman giving a tour at a museum to a large number of delinquent children. By large, I mean maybe half a dozen. Yeah,
maybe half a dozen. And like one of them, like some of them I was a little bit suspect about who specifically would be delinquent out of them. Like one of them is just literally this girl that has like pigtails and stuff. I'm like, I don't know what she's done. I don't really think we see her do anything mean or terrible, but like, I don't know.
No, but what I am saying is that you cannot trust that tiny girl.
No, that's true.
This is just my instinct.
And if anything else, the ultimate punishment for delinquent children is forcing them to learn. So, honestly, taking them to a museum, I get it. They're going to be stuck there minimum 4 hours, nothing for them to really break because everything's behind glass. I get it. It's perfect.
Solid choice.
Yeah, nobody has any phones. I get it.
So that's the frame that surrounds the actual narrative, which is about the story of a man named Manolo Sanchez and his 2 best friends, Maria Posada and Joaquin, whose last name escapes me.
I don't know. I think he's just kind of referred to as Joaquin by everyone, kind of like how Gaston is just called Gaston in Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, well, and
if he has a last name, it doesn't matter because it never comes up, so it's fine.
I think it probably only comes up in reference to his father because that's sort of like the big thing for him, right?
Yeah, the whole like kind of overarching thing with this is that there's a lot of like issues with like some families and stuff, or like expectations being set up by their families
So
that they have to do certain stuff, like keep on a family legacy.
Yeah, there's a few things that I think this movie sort of wants to get at. His name is Joaquin Mondragon Jr.
Oh, I never would have remembered that.
Me neither.
Sanchez, sure. Posada, sure. Not that one. That's not the most like. I mean, like maybe if it was like, I don't know.
I think it's mentioned about twice in the movie, so like
it's
fine.
Maybe I'm just like Hernandez, sure, why not? But no, not in this case.
Yeah, so it's about the three of them, largely focused on Manolo's journey, and they are three best friends from childhood. Ugh, sorry, my brain. I just had a brain fart.
No, it's okay. Well, they're basically chosen to get into this bet that's hedged by these two. Like, well, you discuss that, yeah.
Yeah. So then, when they're kids, two deities essentially are watching them and decide to make a wager based on them. Mm-hmm. One of the deities is La Muerte, who in Spanish.
Great.
She's
so great. I love that. I love both of them. But goddamn, like their designs are fantastic. We'll address all the design stuff later, but
so good.
You can't not notice it and not love them for how great they look in this movie.
One of my friends was like, one of my friends after seeing this movie was like, I just can't watch Disney ever again because the animation in this movie is so stellar.
Yeah, it's like you can see the detail of like La Muerte is basically made out of sugar, like she's a sugar skull deity, and you can see the light reflecting off of each of the crystals. It's unbelievable. Like,
and then her husband/lover Xibalba, who is the king of the land of the ruler of the land of the forgotten. La Muerte rules the land of the remembered. And they make a wager on which of the two boys, Joaquin or Manolo, will be able to successfully romance Maria. And so Xibalba bets on Joaquin, La Muerte bets on Manolo, and they each give one of the boys a blessing. And then through an animal rights activism move,
somehow
Maria
managed to happen
away.
Again. I don't know if it's been 5 movies, but we have yet another movie that manages to incorporate something about like animal testing or animal rights or whatever.
Animal cruelty, certainly.
Animal cruelty, not just with the bullfighting, but also with like the pigs and all that. Like it's just like
more about the bullfighting, but yeah,
that's true. But it still just keeps happening, like every 5 movies. I don't know what it is.
It's every now and again that just pops up.
Yeah.
So Maria gets sent away to school in Spain, I think.
Yeah.
And so Manolo and Joaquin grow up in the same town, and they're both being sort of trained to follow in their family's footsteps. Joaquin is being trained to be a great military man, and Manolo is training to be a great bullfighter.
Yep, as is his family's tradition.
Yes. And we see that Manolo's struggle is that he is resistant to that and instead wants to focus on doing music, as any deadbeat son wants to.
Dad, the band's gonna make it.
My band's gonna make it this time, Dad. We have a real gig.
Dad, you need to believe in us, okay? Why won't you ever give Sex Pig a chance? You don't think we can do it? You don't know. It's like I just love like the whole
Sex Pig. That sounds familiar.
No, not the idea of a sex pig. I'm just saying that like the idea of like this kid like just doubling down. That's a snuggling pig. That's a pig you bring home to mama. But no,
that right there's a sex pig.
No, it's just like I like that weird trope of it's basically if you've ever seen Varsity Blues where like the son has to stand up to the father about like, no, Dad, I don't want your life.
Yeah,
like where like they basically have to kind of do that. He does, but he doesn't. He's very reluctant to try to like make his dad angry or upset or something. He just doesn't want to kill the bull. Like he's fine with fighting it, but he doesn't want to kill the bull to prove his merit as a bullfighter. He doesn't want to kill the bull,
but he also doesn't want to like disappoint his father, right?
Yeah.
Or his family at large.
Oh, family guilt. So strong.
So good.
Yeah.
So in the process of him bullfighting all this and the attempt to woo Maria, Manolo ends up dead because of a trick that Xibalba plays.
Yeah, because Xibalba tries to rig it.
Of course,
like he
does.
cheats. Of course, as per the usual. But he's voiced by the delightful Ron Perlman, so you can't really stay mad at him.
Well, again, his design is so good because he's made. So this is the way they describe it: La Muerte is made of sugar and all things sweet. Xibalba is made of tar and all things gross, basically. So you can see that, like.
But it's like automatically he gets completely shafted that he's like, I understand where he's coming from. It's kind of like Hades within Hercules, the Disney movie, because it's like Hades is just kind of screwed where he's like, great, I have to rule over a bunch of dead people. Awesome. Thanks a lot, bro. And then like, as opposed to with La Muerte, like she basically rules over this gigantic party that's going on constantly with a bunch of happy families. And then Xibalba's just hanging out with all these randies that no one either cares about or all their family is dead, so they can't be remembered anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
So Xibalba tricks Manolo, and Manolo ends up dead in the Land of the Remembered, where he reunites with past members of his family, one of whom is voiced by the director Jorge Gutierrez.
Oh, yes.
One of whom is voiced by the incomparable Danny Trejo.
It's just so nice to see him in like things where
it's always
like the movies where he's not being portrayed as like a petty thug is fantastic. And it's really refreshing because there are so few of them because like he's so known for being a character actor like that.
Well, because he's good at it, and like in fairness, that was his life until he was like 20-something, I think.
No, yeah, I mean like he kind of took what he knew. Like he's kind of the ultimate method actor in that way. There you go.
Yeah.
Throwing shade at you, John Malkovich.
Or,
until you actually become a French lord, then you could talk to me.
Because John Malkovich, actually, he's more like a Malkovich actor. Because method acting is taking the character into yourself.
Oh, that's true.
Malkovich and realistically, the Malkovich idea is to bring aspects of yourself into the character, which is certainly the case for Danny Trejo, I would say.
Yeah, I guess. He just doesn't
experience.
yell like John Malkovich does.
John Malkovich just wants to go to 11 all the time. Okay? And I respect it.
You should look up, this is an aside thing, but you should look up Lindsay Ellis's version, like talking about Cruel Intentions, because she mentions John Malkovich's character where he's basically just acting like a person that's livid that their dressing did not come on the side at Olive Garden. It's like he definitely has that air about himself.
That movie.
Yeah.
So
it's weird. It's gross.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Very much of its time. I'll send you a link later.
That's the vagina movie, isn't it?
No. It's about stepbrother, stepsister do a bet, and then basically if the stepsister wins, she gets to have sex with him. It's gross.
What is the one I'm thinking of?
I don't know.
It's literally famous for having
vaginas?
a scene of... No, it's literally famous for having a scene of the main female actress showing her vagina on screen.
Oh, no, that doesn't happen. I don't know what movie that's supposed to be. No, Cruel Intentions is best known for having a lesbian kiss scene between Sarah Michelle Gellar and Selma Blair. Who is the character Vivian from what was it? Legally Blonde. That was it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that thing where she's like, I'm going to teach you how to French kiss, and then they're just like, oh, it's 1998, we're going to have a lesbian kiss, but they're not really lesbian, so it's okay.
Again, haven't seen the movie.
Also, happy Pride Month.
Pride Month!
Woo! Anyway.
Where the fuck were we? Oh, he's in the Land of the Remembered meeting his family, and then he goes to what is supposed to be La Muerte's castle.
Yeah.
Finds out that it is Xibalba.
He's just crashing there, eating ham and grapes and stuff. As you do.
Yeah, just hanging out.
Yeah, you know.
Being a bro.
Just hanging out, playing Nintendo.
Yeah. Eating grapes, munching on some labes. I don't know.
Yeah, just munch the labes.
God damn it.
Honestly, Xibalba probably fucks. Like, they seem like they have a healthy relationship.
Are you kidding me? Of course he does.
It's like every single time I saw them on screen, I'm like, oh, these guys are fucking constantly.
Oh, no, yeah. Are you kidding me?
It's never been more apparent than like with Gomez and Morticia, where it's just like they can barely like manage to have any kind of civilized conversations because they're constantly undressing each other with their eyes and their words and pretty much everything. Also, eventually their hands, let's be honest.
Eventually. It takes a while to get to the hands.
You know, they're still
part
classy.
Of the joy.
You know, they're in the upper middle class or lower high class.
They like the and tussa. It's half the fun. So
they enjoy savor it. You've got Fester trained under some strange sexual spell. I respect that. Watch those movies again if you haven't seen them in a while, because they're some of my favorites.
Which one? Rocky
The second
Horror?
one specifically. No. Adam's Family Values.
Oh yeah, they're great.
I think it's superior to the first one in my opinion.
I love them both.
Just because it's funnier. Also, Debbie's fucking hilarious. Anyway.
So after that, they decide they're going to go to the land of the remembered to find La Muerte. In doing so, the best thing ever, which is Luis, which is Danny Trejo's character, goes up to challenge the guardian of the realm of the forgotten, or whatever it is. I don't remember, the Cave of Memories, whatever the fuck it's called.
The Cave of Wonders, yes.
The Cave of Wonders. Shut up, Frank. And and it just like knocks his head off. And it's like, you are not worthy. And then it goes, Manolo Sanchez, you must face the labyrinth. And it's literally just a giant game of labyrinth.
No, it's like what you remember. What it reminded me of is, remember at like the dollar store or those weird like Halloween giveaway things where you get like a little maze that you have to try to get the marbles into the center of it or whatever.
Yeah, no,
I was like, it was extremely similar to that.
Oh,
I was
no,
like, oh man, this is like being at the dentist office all over again.
That game is literally called Labyrinth.
Oh, that's it. Oh,
yeah,
okay,
no, I'm not
enough.
joking you.
I thought you meant like
the Minotaur.
Maybe. Well,
The
well,
Minotaur
David
did
Bowie.
live in
I'm not
Labyrinth.
picky. I've been listening to a lot of the Labyrinth soundtrack recently, actually.
Of course you have.
Yeah. I like about 70% of that movie.
That's fair.
I would recut it to make it palatable to me specifically.
Which is to say, cut out everything that isn't David Bowie. Got it.
Yeah, fucking duh. Fucking duh. There's so much wasted time when you're not looking at David Bowie's bulge.
I don't know.
That's a good day. That's a good day for me, is having him yell things at me, throw a baby in the air, and then dance really poorly. Like just putting his hands in different positions, like left and right. Anyway.
He defeats the labyrinth, and then the Guardian swings a giant sword at him to test his spirit, I think, which explodes, which looks super fucking cool, I'll be honest.
Yeah, it does.
Then they meet the Candlemaker, voiced by Ice Cube for some reason.
Hi, Ice Cube. It's nice to see you again.
It's good to see you again. I'm glad you and Channing
I'm
Tatum
a
could
big fan
reunite.
of your son, O'Shea Jackson. He's pretty great.
I don't know who that is.
Have you ever seen Ingrid Goes West?
I tried to watch it and got bored.
Fair enough. Well, basically, he ends up
Is he
being
the landlord?
Aubrey Plaza's. He's the landlord.
Okay.
Yeah, the landlord that's obsessed with Batman Forever.
That's really funny.
Yeah, it's great. He's the best part of that movie. I'll be honest.
That's fair and also disappointing.
It's
As a
okay. I
fan
mean,
of
he deserved
Aubrey
it.
Plaza.
Aubrey Plaza is okay. They make it very difficult to like her.
Oh, yeah.
So that can make it tough to watch.
She's
So
nutty. All right, we're way off track.
yeah.
So the Candlemaker brings them to the Land of the Forgotten, where they meet La Muerte again, and they explain to her that Xibalba cheated again, which she screams, sets things
She is a
ablaze,
shitbit.
and summons him.
Yep.
And then Manolo makes a wager with Xibalba that he can defeat whatever challenge he has and then be brought back to life if he wins.
Yep.
Xibalba agrees, and the challenge is that he must defeat every bull that every Sanchez ever has slain.
Yeah, which I think was related to his biggest fear, because Xibalba asked him about that before, but like obviously he wasn't saying anything direct, so Xibalba had to like kind of look into
he like
him internally,
looks into
like
his head. But that's
Yeah.
the trick of it is, so eventually all the bulls, like after knocking all the skeletal bulls after knocking Manolo around for a bit, turn into a bull tornado, turn into the biggest bull ever, which looks so fucking cool.
Yeah, and it's like, honestly, his fears are completely legitimate, because most of his family, which is quite numerous, have all died from bullfighting.
Yes, that was...
So perhaps they should get a different family trait.
Well, that was a joke.
I'm just saying.
I think that was like something his mother said, like, no, I did not want you to be a bullfighter. I'm really
And
tired
she's like,
of
look
your...
how many dead relatives are down here. You really think I want you to die doing this?
Yeah. Well, but so he defeats the bull not by killing it, but by singing and apologizing to the spirit of all the bulls they've killed.
Yeah.
Which dissipates it. And then his greatest fear, as the narrator points out, was not about the bull itself, but more about being honest with himself and his family about who he is.
Yeah, exactly.
And so he goes back to the land of the living. They fight the the looming boss that's kind of been lurking in the background, Chakal.
Who honestly kind of doesn't really have a whole lot to do in this movie. It's like to me, he just kind of seemed like the ticking clock, honestly.
I mean, yeah, that's all he was, which fine.
Yeah, I get it. Fine.
Well, I think it in some ways, like, it falls victim to not falls victim to, but like, they certainly wanted sort of the big scene at the end to be a big moment of unity for the three friends, because like there's obviously the competition between Manolo and Joaquin over Maria.
Yeah, and it's like a big epic thing of the whole town coming together and trying to rise up to defeat an adversary to showcase how strong they are as a community, I guess.
Yes, well, at the same time, rejecting the path of your forebears and trying to sort of forge your own path. It wants to do all those things, which for Manolo works very well. In the bullfighting thing, we don't get to see it as well for Joaquin and Maria because it's not focused on them. So, which is part of the thing is, when Gutierrez originally conceived the Book of Life, he was thinking of it as 3 movies, one focused on each one.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if he was going to try to, like, say, do this again, if he was going to have, like, maybe a short, I don't know, like, maybe, like, 30-minute version of each character or something, I could see that as being, like, a thing complementing each other, because then we're seeing more of it from their perspectives directly.
Yeah.
As Manolo is technically the main character, even though it's all being narrated by the tour guide character, for the most part. Everything that we're kind of seeing is through his perspective. Like, we don't really get to get any of, like, the internal monologue or, like, the pressures that Maria's facing or Joaquin's facing, like, maybe that he feels he has to compensate because of his dad's legacy, all that.
Yeah, so those things are not present because
it's kind of hinted at, but it's not direct.
Yeah,
so.
It's really Manolo's story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and they defeat Chakal, Manolo and Maria get married, and that's pretty much the end of the movie. Although, since I mentioned it,
dance party ending.
Yeah, dance party ending.
Yeah.
Them singing, which is fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that part's fun.
Since I mentioned it, they're supposedly in 2017, Gutierrez has started working to make the second movie about Maria. I don't know if that's still happening or actually happening.
Yeah, I saw that online as well. I don't know if they've actually started doing any pre-production or like started producing it lately.
I have no idea.
We probably would have seen more going on his Twitter if he was, but
the only thing I saw, and I don't remember how long ago it was, but it was literally a mock-up poster they made for Book of Life 2. And he's like, just a thought. How do you guys feel about this? And of course, everyone who follows him on Twitter was like, please, now.
Yeah, naturally.
Give it
please,
to me.
Please make this thing happen. You guys have all the same assets.
I know.
Like, just maybe just like boost the graphics only slightly because this movie is only 5 years old.
Yeah.
So it still looks fantastic.
Well, so let's talk about the design. Let's talk about
the
design a little
absolutely.
bit. So, because of the frame narrative, when she starts telling the story, there are little puppet figurine toys of the characters. And so the entire movie, all the characters in the story are puppets.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like, they're not like, like literal
Yeah, we're not talking
puppets.
about like marionette type puppets. What I mean is like, they all look like they're carved out of wood.
Yeah, like they're not like cutting over to live action or anything. It's like you can actually see like the notches and the indentations as though they were actually carved. That's just made into the model that they created for this movie.
Yeah,
and that's like the craziest thing in the world to me is the amount of detail in this is astonishing.
Like one thing that consistently every time amazes me is Manolo. If you look very closely at his face, it's almost like he has 5 o'clock shadow because there's just a little like maybe 1/16 of an inch that where he would have a beard is pushed out, but it's the same color as the rest of his face.
Yeah, I mean, I never even realized that he had like a tiny little ponytail in the back of his head
I know,
until
right?
I watched it again.
I
was like, what? I never even, I just assumed he had this weird kind of like Elvis curly-Q thing going on.
So, and like, aside from that, just like how much detail there is in his outfit.
Like his the amount jacket. Of like the epaulettes and everything, it's crazy. The what really struck me the most is that, especially with, and of course we're going to be gushing again about La Muerte and Xibalba, but I like to get into Xibalba specifically because one of my favorite details for him is that his eyes, like the actual, like the iris pupil, whatever you want to call it,
are skulls.
they're little red skulls. And what happens is that depending on how he's addressing someone or how he's talking to them, they will rotate within the actual white of his eye, or like the green of his eye, rather, for his specific character. But like it's so subtle because like even when they're not doing an extreme close-up, you can still see them, like whenever he's interacting with La Muerte, like the amount of like it's unreal. Like, and he's got these gigantic wings that have like crow feathers and everything. It's so cool to just watch them move, especially given how they're both super cartoony and super stylized, and they look pretty much exactly like the concept art. Like we're talking Rango levels of concept art to finished product.
Yeah, so that's one of the things I know. Well, we both wanted to bring it up, but would you like to mention it, Tracy?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Because this is one thing specifically. I'd like to try to get this as close to what he had said verbatim, just because I want to make sure that I do it justice. Here we go. Yep. So the director and the co-creator of Nickelodeon's El Tigre, which I believe was the other project that he worked on before doing this movie.
Yeah, that was his show on Nickelodeon.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it. I think it was slightly outside of our time.
Yeah, just a
little.
But
I remember it being around for a while, or at least like I heard of it being on there. But I think it was like geared towards a way younger audience. So. Yeah. But yeah, like basically his biggest conceit that he wanted to do with this movie was trying to make the final animation look as close to the concept art as possible. So this is a direct quote from him that says, "I saw every single one that comes out, and my biggest heartbreak is that I see all this glorious art and then the movie doesn't look like that. The mandate of this movie was our art of book is going to look exactly like the movie. And every artist poured their heart and soul into that idea." And you can absolutely tell.
Absolutely.
Because like some of the things that they have in here, like the one of my favorite things was where both La Muerte and Xibalba turn into basically like people living within the town of San Angel or San Angel or whatever they call it.
San Angel.
Yeah, San Angel. And La Muerte turns into like this kind of like just, you know, like dumpy old woman or whatever that's wearing a headscarf and everything. And Xibalba is like this horrifying, gross like guy that has like a gigantic nose, like his neck is all like scraggly and everything.
Yeah.
He's got these gigantic like old-timey looking eyes. Like it's crazy because like it looks like it could have just been sketched. Like a lot of the stuff in this movie definitely could have.
Oh yeah.
But not in this case. Like,
yeah. Well, and one of the things I love about that is that I think it does the thing, like we talked about this with Paranorman, but like,
oh yeah,
it's not at all afraid to make the characters ugly, right? Like,
yeah,
some of the characters just do not look good, and that's perfectly in line with the rest of the movie, right? Whereas like Olaf is, I think, the farthest that Disney can reach on a movie, who somehow is not the most insufferable character in that movie.
And the weird thing about Olaf too is that his design is the most removed from anything that I think that they've made for like a character, because like it looks like it came from a shitty Disney knockoff movie, which is what Frozen is to me. But
might as well.
That's not to say that
that's
like
a whole different bag.
I mean, we could just do a Frozen Rage cast at some point if you want. I don't care. We've essentially just made a best of already of just us hating on Frozen.
Yeah.
But no, the fuck, I lost my train of thought because I was hating so hard.
Gotta stop sipping that Haterade, Tracy.
I'm not trying to, but it just tastes so good. No, what was I saying?
You were talking about Olaf. Well, we were talking about Olaf's design, and we were talking about how So I'll get to that. So what I found was striking about a lot of these designs is that it's actually kind of tied into their characters too, because there's one of Manolo's relatives that's like dead, who's clearly modeled after Don Quixote, because he's got like the similar helmet, he's got a beard, and he even gets into like weird theatrical operatic singing during moments of like high stress or like high action or something. So like that's just kind of method to what he does, and I just thought that was very funny. Like there's a whole lot of like very clever things that are put into this. So yeah, well, there's a lot of fun things like that. Like his cousins, the Adelita sisters, I think.
God, they're so great.
Oh God, I love them so much. But they are actually a reference to Mexican revolutionaries.
Seriously?
Yeah, no. So hold on, let me see if I can pull this up again, because I was just looking at it. God damn it.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't doubt it at all.
Well, I saw
I didn't know of that. I just thought they were like these cool like funny, like, sassy pirate women.
No, they're a more specific reference. Someone wrote a longer post about it on, Twitter back in the day. Not Twitter.
Yeah.
Tumblr. Sorry.
Tumblr. Oh, God, those were the salad days.
Yep.
I really hope that Pornhub buys them so people will start going onto that website more often.
Yeah. Adelita and Scardelita are both deceased cousins of Manolo's. They perished during the Mexican Revolution while protecting Emiliano Zapata, which I think is actually a real event that he had.
Yeah, that actually was a real event. I remember that being... Wasn't that linked to, like, the Spanish-American War or, like, the Spanish Revolution?
I'm really bad
Something like
at history that is not 19th century American, so I don't know.
Yeah, fair.
I'm real tight in on, like, about 1852.
I kind of stop at like 1870.
Yeah, that's
well,
fair.
1880 something.
So anywho, that was sort of like it was a very cool sort of homage that they had, having those two characters who I adore. So one thing that was sort of, I wanted to mention this because I had read this story, which was super interesting.
Go for it.
So way back, before he did El Tigre, or his show on Nickelodeon, he had gone to some studio to pitch his work, and what he had brought them was a large number of, in his portfolio was like a lot of like superhero stuff, like American Caped Crusader stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And in the back of it, there was some of his like more luchador stuff, like his previous show. And whatever studio head or whoever he met with was like, you need to scrap everything but this, talking about the luchador stuff, because this is clearly what you want and what has the most unique resonance. And so that's
like what he's obviously the most passionate about, and that he's like an authority on.
Yeah, and this is like something this is not rehashing old crap, right? There's something new here on some level, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think,
because like before then, like the only thing I could think of was like what Mucha Lucha that was on Kids WB like way back in the day.
God, eons ago.
Oh yeah,
so long ago we needn't even think about it.
I mean, I remember liking some of the stuff that I saw, but I feel like I was very aware of my whiteness when I was watching it. I'm like, man, I feel like this would be a lot more like a lot funnier if I really kind of knew what they were talking about.
Maybe.
I just
right?
thought that the Flea's costume was cute. I thought that he looked like a little dog.
He was kind of cute.
So
I just thought that was an interesting story, and I think it sort of resonates with the fact that he wanted to like keep the art style close to the sort of like concept art as he could.
Yeah, and also I believe that within the pre-production for this movie, he did not allow the team to go to Mexico to try to do any like trips to do research, because he found that most of the areas that they would go to, because like certain areas of Mexico are not necessarily safe to travel to, so you have like they would be probably going on like some kind of like touristy areas, like
right.
we're going we're going to Cozumel, we're going to Cancun, going to Yucatan,
right?
Like
the areas that are safe are very like touristy, sort of like colonialized spaces, I feel like. So like he wanted to make sure that I made this joke earlier when Tracy and I were sort of kicking this idea around that like it's almost like an auteurish thing to do, but it also like, I think it's his attempt to get a more sort of authentic feel to the movie in some ways.
Yeah, I'm sure that he wanted to make sure that it was consistent with his vision, so that it wouldn't have been like them just doing like stereotypical things or whatever, because that can tend to veer into certain movies.
Oh yeah,
where, like,
well, and that was
even movies made with like the best of intentions, like Mulan, will still have like some things where like that could be kind of racist, that could be kind of stereotypical, all that. So
yeah, I actually got super pissed because I was looking up the reception for this movie and someone said it was Speedy Gonzalez level, and I was like, fuck,
that's
you
stupid.
Asshole.
They clearly like. I want to know who specifically had said that, because I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, I mean, like, was it just like a salty white dude or something?
I can only imagine that it was a salty white dude. Critical reception.
Because it's like, if there's one thing that I have learned from listening to Spanish radio in the surrounding Chicago area, is that they have a certain type of humor style, which is like kind of infectious. Like, look, I've watched my fair amount of telenovelas, and I love that they are played straight because they can be very funny. But a lot of soap operas in the U.S. are very silly too. So I think it's just like they're not doing anything to be like deliberately like racist or messed up, obviously.
No, well, also
But-
like to like, especially in this, it takes a certain, in this instance, right? It takes a certain sort of tone deafness to reference Speedy Gonzalez in reference
Yeah.
to the work of an actual Mexican writer and director. In fact,
Like Speedy
And-
Gonzalez
and-
cartoons, which have not been produced since the late 70s,
yeah,
by the way.
not to mention the magnificent executive producer, the one and only Guillermo del Totoro.
Guillermo del Toro.
Someone drew that fan art and he loves it.
I adore that, and that's like the most fitting thing I could ever think to compare him to.
I know, it's so
Also,
perfect.
like I've been
think-
watching the trailer for Death Stranding because Kent is really excited to play that.
Uh-huh.
And it's just really nice to see him there. I love that he and Hideo Kojima are bros. It makes so much sense.
I mean, it's pretty great.
it's fantastic.
I guess there was a leak, or there was talks of what Guillermo del Toro's next movie was going to be, and it's like, is going to show that like men are more monstrous than monsters. It was a
I mean, it's like, dude, you don't need a movie to do that.
well, and also like the other joke was like,
Try going online for a couple days.
well, also that, but also the joke was like, sir, we've heard this story, and you'll hear it again.
I adore Guillermo del Toro.
Me too.
And also, Ron Perlman, who did the voice of Chewbacca, was in Hellboy. That was directed by Guillermo del Toro. So
Yes.
there's a little bit of overlap with some of the characters in this.
Yeah. Oh, so that's another fun story. So Tracy and I are at odds about the inclusion of pop songs in this movie. However,
Yeah, I mean, you can go ahead. You make your point first, and then I'll do my
this is not even a
so.
point. This is just a story that makes me love the movie more.
Oh, okay. I was like, you don't want to do Crossfire? 'Cause we can
No,
do
I don't.
Crossfire.
I don't feel like arguing.
Okay. All right, fine.
I'm sorry. I know you're contentious, but I don't want to argue.
Why won't you fight with me?
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know. Not a
Okay.
fighty,
All right.
not a fighty person. I gotta get ready for bed in half an hour.
I need to go to bed at 10.
No, I get ready for bed at 10. I go to bed at like 10:30.
Oh, okay. I was like, that's very responsible of you.
I'm trying.
for you.
I'm trying to. You see, what I do is when the summer starts, I try to get into good habits that I hope will survive into the fall semester, and they inevitably fall apart.
Well, the important thing is that you tried.
Yes. Anywho,
Yeah.
so the story is this: that they use Creep in a certain part of the movie. And when they were in production, Guillermo del Toro was like, all right, you have to be careful because Radiohead is very sort of protective of their songs. I tried to get one of their songs for one of my movies and they wouldn't let me do it. And
Yeah.
they tried to get the rights for Creep, and Radiohead was like, yeah, no, this is like exactly the kind of circumstance in which that song is appropriate. So we're fine. And Guillermo del Toro was like, are you kidding me? It's just
He's like,
that story.
what do I have to do for you to return my calls, Tom York?
Yeah.
I like your weird eyes, but still, please call me back, Tom York.
Call me back, you beautiful son of a bitch.
He is a beautiful son of a bitch.
I have no
Even
idea
though,
what he looks like. and I'm gonna keep it
I'll
that
send
way.
you a picture later.
I'm gonna keep it that
but,
way.
I mean, I just remember I watched a documentary on Radiohead, like it must have been like 5 years ago or something, but whatever it was, is that like basically it got to a certain point that like they kind of got so fed up of singing the same songs, like singing Creep,
Oh, yeah.
that he would just point the microphone out to the audience and let them do it.
That's really
He's like,
funny.
you already know what you want to hear, just do it. I don't give a shit.
That's really funny. Well, I guess
Yeah.
some artists get like that.
Yeah.
Like I remember listening to, God, many years ago, too many now, an interview with Incubus where they were like, "Yeah, you're probably glad to not be singing this song anymore." They're like, "Yes, we are."
Oh, Jesus Christ. Like that's why they have to be like, whenever a new album comes out, they are only contractually obligated to be playing those songs roughly every other night for about, 5 months or something.
wow.
Then they get to take another break. And then like inevitably they go on tour again. And that's
Yeah.
why like they don't play as many of their older songs like,
Yeah.
if they don't have to. So, because like, God, like being a touring musician must suck balls. Because it's like all they do is you just playing the same songs over and over again. Whereas like, this is what MP3 players are for, people. But
Yeah.
I still like going to them.
Yeah.
I just like seeing them. And if they've got good energy and the fans are decent, then it's fun.
Yeah.
So,
So, other thoughts?
oh yes, other thoughts. Okay, so and this is just like, this is me in particular, because it's sort of, to me, it kind of reminded me of things like Shrek, where like the ending of the movie, I think for the first one, where they had the karaoke dance party thing, or it might have been a deleted scene, I don't remember.
That was the end of the movie.
But yeah, it was the end of the movie. The only reason I don't really like that stuff is just because I find the song choices that they do to be kind of like cliche and obvious. So like there's like one point where Manolo is basically trying to serenade Maria from her balcony and everything, or like from there. And one of the mariachi band members that Manolo hangs out with, who I believe is voiced by Gabriel Iglesias.
There's one.
They also have Cheech Marin there.
Yeah.
There's a few of them.
Yeah. It's those two, and I don't remember who the third person is because I think he's not as popular.
Yeah, I don't remember either. I'm sure it'll come to me at some point, but like he starts playing Just a Friend by Biz Markie. And the reason that I don't like that is just because if they're supposed to be transported into like this kind of fantasy, like storybook thing, whatever you want to call it, it just seems really incongruous. Like they're trying to relate to the kids. Like, hey, you kids like Biz Markie, this song that came out back in 1986. I can connect with you. I found some of it to be kind of weird.
That one I agree.
Because they don't do it a ton, but they do it at least 4 times.
I also have some issues with that song on a general basis. The other ones, though, I don't feel like I'm not as bothered by, because it's not, for 2 reasons. One, because it's not just the soundtrack, right? It's not things are happening and we're playing like this new Fall Out Boy song.
No,
it's
not. It's not like anything that incongruous.
Right.
It's just like, to me, it's just kind of like them kind of narrating their own feelings by using a pop song, and I'm like, well, that's what acting is. Like that's what scripts are for. And it just seemed kind of weird that they're like, we're gonna reference Creep at this point where Manolo doesn't want to kill a bull, where it's like we already kind of know. And he's not a creep. He's not a weirdo just because he doesn't want to stab a bull. Like them, I guess that might be weird if you're trying to be a bullfighter in Madrid or something.
Well,
but
and it's a matter of like, again, this was the thing that Radiohead said. Like, it's a young man who feels like very out of place at this moment. So like, no, he's not a creep, but he's certainly like, if everyone tells you to do a thing and you're like, well, I'm not going to do the thing, and then everyone screams at you for not doing the thing, you definitely feel like a weirdo, right?
I guess. I mean, like, to me, it's just like a lot of the choices were just like very on the nose to the point that they seemed a little obvious, but that's just me. I just, in general, I prefer to just kind of like have things a little bit simpler, because the basic story synopsis that you provided earlier is like, that's pretty much a general overview. But the thing that kind of gets to me after a certain point is that they tend to just keep kind of layering on more and more details about like, oh, well, Xibalba, he cheated by having this snake staff by Manolo, but it had 2 heads, so technically he bit him twice, so he double cheated. So then that means like, I feel like sometimes they add so much detail to the point that it gets extraneous and confusing, and it doesn't really add a whole lot to the narrative to me.
He cheated like before the movie even started in a previous bet, right?
Yeah.
The 2-headed snake thing was like part of his trick. So, but yeah, they do like, I don't know, like I'm not as opposed to like layering in extra things that you don't, like, they're just kind of there that don't need to be.
Yeah,
super
I mean,
explained,
I think
right.
I just thought that like the story itself was interesting enough with both having the bet between the 2 of them, because it's kind of a story of Job thing, but granted, not everyone dies. It's just like one person, and then that's supposed to like kind of spur things, because by Manolo sacrificing himself to revive Maria, it's supposed to show how selfless he is and how much he loves her. But at the same time, it's like then the rest of it just kind of becomes a fetch quest for like him going throughout this world. And like we barely get to see any of the Land of the Remembered, which is a big bummer to me.
Yeah.
Because they feature it so much in the advertising and it's really pretty, but everything is like super fast forwarded through it.
Yeah.
Because he's trying to find his family. He goes on a bunch of different floats during this parade or something. And then it's like we basically spend like maybe all of 4 minutes there, 3-4 minutes, and then it's done.
Right.
And I'm like, well, it just seems like, because like contrasting that with a movie like Coco, where most of the movie kind of takes place between there.
Right.
Where it's like 60% of it takes place within the spirit world and 40% is within the real world.
Sure,
so.
But Coco's trying to do something different to a large extent.
No,
right?
I know that like that the actual core of the story and everything is very different.
Yeah.
And a bunch of people who are like, oh, is this a sequel? It's like, no, dummy. Like they're different studios.
No, well, there was
totally
definitely
different.
I think there were rumors that he had tried to bring it to Disney and they were like, nah, and then like basically co-opted Coco. I don't think that's the case.
Like kind of like the whole thing with like ants in A Bug's Life or something that happened.
That petty
back
asshole.
in the day.
Anywho.
Yeah, with petty asshole Jeffrey Katzenberg.
Good old Jeffrey Schatzenberg. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, I think Gutierrez just wants to do something different, right? So, like...
Yeah. It's not necessarily bad. It's just some of that humor stuff kind of fell flat for me, and it's just not really my cup of tea.
Fair enough.
So it's not like offensive or stupid or mean-spirited or anything. It's it just personally didn't do a lot for me.
Sure.
So, that's kind of most of what I've got. Did we leave anything out, really?
I don't think so. I mean, we didn't talk about the Amulet of Immortality, but that's not really important.
It's like the biggest MacGuffin, honestly.
I mean, it is.
I kind of forgot that it was there to begin with.
It's just a MacGuffin, right? It only serves to further the plot. Fine.
It serves to further the plot. It comes up like maybe once, but they just sort of keep mentioning it. Like it's supposed to be the thing that's motivating Shakal to try to invade Sanha, to invade the city.
Yeah.
And it's like, but then otherwise, no one really remembers that it's there. Like it would be one thing if that pendant was like trying to like corrupt Joaquin or something, like as though that was part of Xibalba's reason for picking him or something, because he could like manipulate him when he was younger or something.
Yeah.
But it really never pays off. It's just sort of there.
Well, yeah,
because Xibalba, he's a trickster, but he's not like an inherently shitty person.
Yeah, he's not an asshole, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think like doing something like a corruption element like that would have been like way too convoluted, I think, at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. It would have been too much,
like,
because then it would just been like, well, we don't want to ruin Joaquin. He's just a big dummy.
Yeah.
Like,
well, at the end of the
that's
day,
his
like,
appeal.
You know, tropes are tropes for a reason, right?
Yeah, true.
Like that was
because they're effective.
Yeah,
they work.
Well, that was the thing. Like there were some reviews that were like very like, oh, it's like very predictable and blah blah. And I was like, shut your goddamn mouth. Tropes exist for a reason. We can't constantly try and like do everything postmodern and shove everything up its own ass. It doesn't work.
And then it's like eventually when you get to the point that you're subverting all these tropes, then that becomes a subversion into itself, like Disney now, basically. Pretty much Disney past Tangled.
Yeah, well, at a certain point, like, trying to subvert tropes, you're just trying to copy someone else subverting tropes, right? You can do it was all a dream once, but now that everyone has done it once, it's shitty. The first time, it's
very
hackneyed,
minds. Too. Yeah,
because it was
but it's like trying to make everything all a dream. It means that like, oh, my involvement in the series has been wasted. Nothing that happened actually had any meaning, did not affect any of the other characters. So it's just basically a big fuck you to the audience.
Right, so like there is something to be said for like playing into tropes and like playing it straight, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is sort of my frustration with reviews like those. Anywho, that's
I get it.
One of my hobby horses. I'm gonna get off it now.
It's okay. You're allowed to do that for like certain reviewers and stuff, because it's like it's one thing to just kind of like shit all over the story and everything, because like if any of them had said anything about like, oh, like I found the animation style clunky, or that the textures are too intense, I'm like, you're a fucking idiot.
You are wrong.
Because this movie is stupid
and I will
pretty.
Murder you.
But I mean, it may have some issues with like the plot and streamlining the story, but no one will be able to say that it is not an original piece of like, it's not based on anything. It's not based on like a property or a pre-existing movie or a franchise or something else. So it's like, at the very least, it's got that going for it, and it's actually legitimately interesting and engaging.
Yeah.
Like it won't make you bored at the very least.
No.
It may be kind of, I don't know. I think personally it might be a little bit too wordy and like too plot heavy for like super little kids. Like anyone younger than like 6 or 8 probably won't be able to understand what's going on.
Sure.
Like they'll find some of the stuff funny, but the overarching plot stuff it's very dialogue heavy. So you have to factor that into it.
When it was, but I know I showed this movie to my nephews when I was babysitting them once, and then they spent the rest of the night jumping around the house yelling Joaquin.
Really?
Yeah, well, because he does that like 3 or 4 times. He just like jumps in the belly like Joaquin, and they just thought that was the best thing ever.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's like I like that what they're trying to do is that they're not just trying to do a straight love story. They're trying to have like some kind of action stuff built into there too.
Yeah,
and you still get to meet like all of his family and everything. Like they're trying to do like a bunch of plots concurrently, and for the most part it works. But some of it I just thought was a little too much.
Yeah, like honestly, I think the love story is almost like secondary to the journey that Manolo himself is on, right? And that like
it's incidental that there's a love story going on, because it's supposed to be like his journey
woven into that, but not like in such a way that like, you know, not in a way that's like hackneyed or sort of like
it's not ham-fisted.
Yeah. What was your favorite part? The heavy-handedness?
I really liked how it talked down to the audience. Really made them feel small and stupid in comparison to the might that is the directors.
So that was one thing about this movie that I wanted to mention that I read in the reviews that I thought was really cool, is that the way that this movie treats death specifically, I really enjoy, especially because it's a kids movie.
Mm-hmm. And also because as Americans, we're kind of just trained to not talk about death, which is why it's so awkward going to a funeral.
Yeah.
Where it's like you really don't know what to say, so they're just like, it's just kind of about you being there. But it's like, no, death happens. It's going to happen to us at some point.
It's a natural part of everything, right? And
yeah, and it shouldn't be scary. It's not bad to die.
Yeah,
like
well,
there,
so this is,
and it's bad to not talk about that kind of stuff with your kids too.
Yeah, well, so there's what I think exemplifies this best is in I want to say the Spanish version. There's a line where so Manolo dies in the movie, obviously, right, and goes to the land of the remembered.
Yeah.
When that happens, one of the kids says, "It's not over, is it?" And she says, "No, it's not over." In the Spanish translation, I think it actually says, "Death is just the beginning," or something like that, which implies, right, that like there is much more to existence than just what we experience. And whether you believe
especially
that or not.
if you subscribe to a particular kind of afterlife or what have you,
right?
But it's like, yeah, I mean, like, Frank, as long as you've got like decent memories and like good relationships with the people that were in your life, it's not gonna be like wasted or anything. You know, it's like the reason that people don't like hell is because they've done terrible things.
Yes,
and they fucked over people. It's like you don't like. Yeah. Anyway, I'm very much like an agnostic. I don't want to say atheist because atheist is a bunch of terrible connotations on the internet.
Yes.
So
right, but what I'm saying is like even if you don't sort of believe in an afterlife, I think that there is still something valuable to paying homage to the fact that death is not sort of the end of existence, and it's not this terrible thing that we sort of like act like it is sometimes. In fact, it's just a natural part of life.
Yeah, it does bum me out that we just don't talk about it regularly because like I'm sure that there are people in our family that, you know, we might be concerned about, or like relatives of ours that are like older, like grandparents or something, where it's like it'll be very weird to imagine them not being in your life, but it's going to happen at some point.
Yeah,
so
I have to be very careful because my roommate has pretty bad thanatophobia. He's pretty freaked out by death. So I have to be careful about making jokes about it because on the other hand, I'm like, yeah, you die and that happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like, I don't know. You can always usually tell if there's like a certain person's household where like they probably just didn't talk about it or it was like a very taboo thing or anything. I think it's just like as Americans specifically, we're just kind of like trained to not talk about it because no one wants to assume that they're going to die. Like that's kind of like why the exercise industry is all about like, oh, you make sure you exercise a bunch and like eat really healthy so that you can live longer and everything. But it's like, honestly, I don't think I want to be 80. I mean, like my legs hurt now. They're probably going to hurt a lot worse in like 20 years.
Yeah, I have no idea what
so
the next
it's like
many years
that's why like the whole concept of retirement does not appeal to me. It's like, no, fuck that. I want to do the stuff that I want to do when I'm still like young and like can, you know, move around easily.
Oh, retirement appeals to me very much in the sense of like they joke about like old people sitting around playing gin rummy and things, and I can only imagine that when I am old.
That's what you do now.
Like, shut your goddamn mouth.
It's true.
It is true.
You're living your bliss, Robbie, and you're not even retired.
When I am retired, I can do it without any guilt.
You don't have to feel guilty about doing it as long as you structure the rest of your time adequately. It's not a big deal.
But I can then structure my time around just that because there is nothing else.
Well, what? Okay, fine. If that's what your life's gonna be like.
When I'm an old person, those are the only I will want to spend time with people I love, largely doing things
and play card games.
Card games, D&D, board games, take your pick.
Any variant thereof.
Any and all of the above.
I basically just want to buy a ranch and rehabilitate dogs, or just have a bunch of dogs and like train them how to hurt each other. That's all I want to do.
That sounds so exhausting as an old person.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be cool. Because, like, basically, I'll do, like, a hotel for dogs situation where I've trained the others to, like, feed the other dogs. So it's, like, a self-perpetuating cycle. So maybe I'll rent some of them out to Hollywood to help make ends meet because ranches must be expensive. But
yes, they are.
I don't know. I never said my dream was practical, Robbie. I just said that I wanted to do it.
Yeah, all right. Fair enough. Anywho.
Thanks for your sympathy.
I don't know what you want me to say.
Just don't say anything. Just go. All right. Anyway, Robbie, where can they find you?
As always, you can find me on Twitter at lobster_writer, on Instagram at lobsterwriter. Tracy, where do they find you?
Thank you, Robbie. They can find me on Twitter and Instagram via @tctrausch. You can also find our show website via notjoannaeggs.tumblr.com. We also have our show YouTube, so in case that listening to podcasts on whatever podcatcher you're on is not convenient for you, a lot of our episodes, especially our most recent ones, are getting auto-uploaded to YouTube.
Neat.
So you can just look for Not Joanna Eggs on the YouTube search function. And guess that's about it.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, but thank you again to Daniel for this recommendation, because I am certain that this would have come up one way or another, but you gave us the exact amount of incentive that we needed to finally talk about
Which
it.
is saying, hey,
so
you should
thank
talk
you.
about it. Which is apparently all you need
which
to
is
do.
you directly asking for it online, and we're like, oh man, you know what? I like the cut of your jib.
Dude.
You're hired. So.
I think that was one of my notes in this movie when Manolo challenges Shibolba. I'm just like, Manolo, I like the cut of your jib. You got guts, kid. I'll give you a job.
You're hired.
You're hired, kid. I'm not applying.
First prize. First prize.
First prize. Thanks, Lisa. All right.
I won first chair? No, Allison won first chair. And believe me, this is no dream.
This is no dream. That's good.
That's so cool.
All right.
She's just a child.
She is.
Anyway, all right, cool. Thank you so much for listening, everybody.
We'll talk at you next time.
We'll talk at you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bah.
Hey, thanks for listening to another episode of Not Joanna Eggs. Our intro music is Don't Hold My Breath by Ben Briggs, and the outro is Wet Dreams by Phonetic Hero. Both were found on ocremix.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please remember to like and subscribe on whatever platform you use. Not Joanna Eggs, because animation is for everyone. Thanks.
Okay.
Dead mosquito. Here we go.
Nice.
Dead mosquito. Here we go.
Dad mosquito. He's raising 3 kids together.
I
He's
said
got
dead
no
mosquito,
wife at home.
which means that I
he's
have
just
just
a dad
murdered
mosquito.
a single father.
He can't feed his kids because he's a guy.
Also, I killed him.
Also, he's dead.
Yeah, I said dead mosquito, not
I
dad
said
mosquito.
dad mosquito as though it's some kind of ABC Family show.
That's horrible.